The Nikon Z135mm f1.8s Plena tells you exactly what you need to know about the Nikon Z mount in the year 2023. So without further ado, let's jump right in and talk about it. What's up y'all, it's Project Photography back with another video, and today before we get started, make sure to follow all of my socials down in the description bar below. But I've been using the Nikon Z Plena for the past week or two, give or take. And obviously this is an incredible lens, but this is not a review. We are going to be talking about what this lens means to the Nikon Z system in the year 2023, and we'll talk a little bit about it moving forward as well. And I just want to preface this by saying that we're going to be talking a lot about optics in this video, but I am myself not a physicist. I do not claim to be. I don't understand everything about optics and how that light works. I am simply a photographer that has some observations about the Nikon Z mount and lenses in general, and how that's really progressed when it comes to the year 2023 versus what it looked like in 2018. But of course, before we talk about the Plena, we actually have to go back to 2018 and talk about what our expectations and our thoughts were with the Z mount having that larger diameter, what that meant for lenses and photographers. Now, of course, we know that having a larger diameter will allow for more light to be let in. This means having those faster 0.95 apertures that Nikon promised, and we could have zooms that are f1.8. And that larger diameter ended up making the 50 1.2s, the 85 f1.2s, and these have all proven to be absolutely exceptional lenses, and a lot of people are very happy with them. Obviously, with much faster apertures, we were able to get better low light situations, we were able to blur out the background more, and make it so that we have less grainy photos overall, especially in those low light with a faster shutter speed. But we've seen lenses like the 0.95 Noct, the 58mm, but we've seen that it's only manual focus. And this kind of showcases that, you know, even though we are able to have these incredibly fast apertures, you know, the specs of having that low light fast aperture is only one part of the equation. You also have to make the lens practical for everyday use, for more photographers to be able to use a lens. Because as amazing as the 58mm f.95 is, it's really only usable in a handful of situations that your subjects are relatively still, because getting that manual focus at 0.95 is incredibly difficult. And back in the day, we had f-mount lenses that were at f1.4 in terms of aperture, the 85 1.4, the 105 1.4, and those are incredible lenses. But we've seen the evolution with the Z mount. The Z mount is about 25% larger than the f mount at a 55mm diameter versus the f mount is about a 44mm diameter. And we've seen the aperture of the lenses in terms of their brightest lenses go from f1.4 to f1.2, which only resulted in a third of a stop more light let in. And the difference between that third of a stop is the difference between a 1/125th of a second shutter speed and a 1/100th shutter speed. So it really isn't a massive difference despite the large increase in the diameter size. But now that the Nikon Z mount has matured and the Nikon Plena has come out, I feel like this really answers a lot of those questions as to what is this large diameter of the Z mount actually good for, right? Because if we're able to create that 58mm 0.95 lens with the incredibly fast aperture, but it's so big, I mean, what is that balance between specs as well as performance and practicality? And that is absolutely something we're going to be talking about in this next part. But for now, let's take a break and we have a quick word from our friends over at Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is our partner for today's episode, and you might know them from their owner, Ryan Reynolds. But let's talk about how great their services are. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service for as little as $15 a month without sacrificing any data, coverage, or speed. As you guys know, I love to save money on camera gear, so why should your phone plan be any different? So make sure to click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're interested in the best value in wireless. All Mint Mobile plans have unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. And I personally switched to Mint Mobile and obviously wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't like it. And I've used it for everything from GPS to streaming YouTube, or even listening to music while I'm out there shooting landscape photography. And I couldn't tell a difference in speed or performance while on Mint's network. But now, through the end of October, they have a special limited time offer that allows you to get one of their unlimited plans that's normally $30 a month for just $15 a month. That's a savings of 50% on their already low prices. So use the link in my description or scan the QR code on screen to get started. It really helps my channel out. So thank you again to Mint Mobile for partnering with us. And now let's get back to the video and talk about the Plena and what it means for the Nikon Z mount in the year 2023. So I have a question for you guys. For example, why wouldn't Nikon be able to make a 135mm f1.4? technically with a larger diameter, they probably would have been able to. And even with Sony's smaller 46.1mm diameter for their mount, they're still able to come out with a 135mm f1.8. So what gives? I mean, the Plena is obviously an incredible lens, but even with a smaller diameter mount, Sony's still able to make a very similar lens. And to answer that question, the answer lies in the Plena, because with it, we're able to see far less, almost practically zero vignetting at the edges, eliminating those chromatic aberrations and making sure that bokeh is nice and round at the edges and no lemon-shaped bokeh. And this is all only possible because of that larger Z mount, right? We're able to create a larger image circle so that, you know, we're able to eliminate all those other factors. You know, Nikon talked a lot about pushing the edges of optical performance. And what does that mean? It means eliminating all those other factors that makes an image not as pleasant to look at. And they were able to make this lens while still maintaining the practicality of it. I mean, just my personal experience, I've been able to use this in a walk around sense. Like going to LA, I was able to shoot photos around there because, you know, it's so easy to walk around with. This is actually a very light lens for the size and the build of it. And that just simply wouldn't be possible if the lens was heavier and not as usable and practical. And let's just say that the 135mm was at 1.4. I mean, would that really make a difference between the 1.8 and 1.4 aperture? I honestly would argue no. There was never a time that I'm shooting with the Plena where I was like, oh wow, I wish I had more background separation. I mean, you get so much bokeh, so much background separation, you never wish you had that extra level of separation. Now, of course, people are like, okay, well, I mean, why does it matter in terms of these like fine details? Of course, we would want more background separation, and would it hurt to have a f1.4 aperture on a lens like this? And I mean, of course, like we do want to push the edges of optical performance and technology, but at the cost of what, right? If we were to go down to an f1.4 aperture, what would that look like? We wouldn't necessarily see a massive change in the background separation. I mean, the Plena already gives insane background separation, but what would happen is that we would create a much bigger lens, maybe optically not as perfect, and it would just make the lens not as practical to use for everyday scenarios. And it's just so interesting because when the Nikon Z mount came out, people thought, oh, we could have those f1 apertures for primes and f1.8 zooms, but at the cost of what? At the cost of practicality, at the cost of it being a walk around lens? Because people are always striving to downsize a gear in terms of weight, in terms of compactness, and if we're sacrificing a lot of that to get that just extra third of light, like, is that really worth it? And in this channel, I've talked a lot about what it means to have a practical lens, a lightweight lens that allows you to go farther on hikes, or even a lens that's more compact so you can fit more gear in your bag. I've talked a lot about these things because those are things that are important to me and how I shoot photography. But if we were to create those big lenses, it would make it much harder for us to go out and shoot more photography. And at the marginal benefit of a third of a stop, is that really worth it for us to go out and shoot less? To me, I would argue no, and of course this is a personal decision for myself. That's why I stray more towards those lightweight lenses, and I'm really happy with the direction that Nikon has gone to push for more practical lenses while still maintaining optical perfection without having to go to those f1 apertures and so forth with autofocus to try and make it more practical, but would make it a much larger, less compact lens. So now that we talked about the Plena and the Z mount in 2023, let's discuss Nikon's plans moving forward. So I think one thing that they can do, because the roadmap is already complete. They're not going to release another one. All lenses on there is what is going to be out. And I think a really interesting way that they can go about it is actually creating some more wide angle primes. Obviously, I am very biased because I'm a landscape photographer. I would love to see a 14mm f1.8, for example, because the only wide angle prime that we have that's actually wide enough to do landscape photography is a 20mm f1.8s. Now that's an incredible lens, but it's not no 14mm. And if they were to translate this idea of optical perfection while maintaining practicality and still having good specs, because honestly, if you had a 14mm f1.8, would still be an incredible lens. But if we were able to push the boundaries of optical perfection, like imagine a 14mm f1.8 with zero vignetting and extremely sharp corner to corner f1.8, right? Like that would be such a huge win for a lot of astrophotographers out there who want those clean images that are optically perfect and they don't have to worry about the vignetting. What kind of value does that add versus going to a 1.4, for example? And of course, you can translate the Plena philosophy, that's kind of what I'm gonna call it, the Plena philosophy into so many other lenses of practicality, optical performance, and incredible apertures. I mean, that's something that we can do without having to create these f1 lenses that sacrifice a lot of those different things. I think Nikon has done a really well job in terms of balancing all those qualities. Let me know what you guys think about my opinions. I mean, obviously for me, I'm not here to tell you that my opinion is right, yours is wrong. I am simply just stating what I see with the Plena and what that meant to the Nikon Z mount. Of course, your opinion may vary, and you're more than welcome to leave that in the description bar below. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today and watching my video. And again, if you want to sign up with Mint Mobile, feel free to check out my description and the link below. And of course, I'll be making more videos about the Plena, so make sure you're subscribed so when those videos come out, you're able to check them out. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.